And it wasn't until after that date that the Secretary's office decided, yeah, we probably should notify these men and women that their personal data has been disclosed. And the letters went out July 1st, and they were being received when most of us were going on our long holiday weekend. So a lot of these people were blindsided. And it appears from the spokesman for the Secretary's office that there was a real debate in-house. Well, does the law that applies to everybody else apply to us? Well, the spirit of the law is, yeah, it applies to you. And if you've got somebody's eye color and hair color and all that other information, you must have their email addresses. It would have been easy to send an email out. It would have been easy to go to the press and say, there was disclosure, contact this office. I checked on his website the day after this all came, the day after the holiday weekend, so it would have been the Tuesday, and I didn't see anything on there, but later in the day I did, thought I missed it, but one of the advisors I've talked to, somebody who was directly affected, said this wasn't on their website at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they really delayed, and to me that's the problem, is the response. Everybody makes mistakes. Mistakes happen. It's how you deal with the mistakes, and I think that was a pretty big mistake. I know I wouldn't want it to have happened to me. I know that this is a tough race for me. I know I'm running against somebody who's been on Beacon Hill for 40 years in one capacity as another, either as state rep or state senator or as Secretary of State. He's been in this particular office for 4 terms, and he'll be in there for 2 decades if he's reelected. I know it's a big task, but it's one that I think is important. It's one, I have a position that I love, that I've had for going on, as I said, 13 years. I walk to work in the morning. It's 5 minutes from where I work. I can go home and have lunch with my wife. But I think it's important. I think we all think it's important. That's why you're here tonight, to get involved. It's time for change. I'm willing to step out of what I think is a pretty good life to take this chance to say, I think it's time for me to go to Boston, the rest of us to take a role in getting us into Boston, because we need some change. My name is Bill Campbell. I'm running for Secretary of State. I need your support, and I ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to have any questions?
You never mentioned the Secretary of State. It's Bill Galvin, am I right? How are you going to compete against him when the election is coming up? You're going to see these phony ads on television that he makes, and it's just putting his name on the television. Oh, if it's cold outside, you should go and get air conditioning. You know, these phony issues that he brings up, and it just portrays him across the state lines on local television. It's going to be hard to compete if you're running against him because you don't have equal time, which probably you should. Or bring that issue up when there is an election coming up. Should he be allowed to make those political, to me they're just political opportunities for him to get reelected?
You're absolutely right, and that's what I had brought up, that that I don't go into this blind, that I know it's going to be very difficult, that I don't have great name recognition among most people in Massachusetts. I do have name recognition in most communities because city and town clerks know me and they know my work, but of course we all try to stay as neutral as we can in these elections. I'm going to do the best I can. This is probably 70 or 80th group I've been to in the last few weeks. I'm going to continue to do this right through to the end. We've got some surprises that'll come out to get our name out there. No question about it, he's marshaling his resources. He has over $2 million, close to $3 million in various accounts that he holds, long-term and short-term. And no question about it, he also has money available through his office to do informational commercials. In fact, back in 2002, there was a law passed that allows his department, the Securities Division, if they bring an action against somebody, to impose a civil penalty. And if they impose a civil penalty, they can include a $25,000 fine. In addition, that's kept by his office and is used for enforcement, investigation, and dissemination of information, which you can read as additional commercials. But you know, when you go to the ballot, some people say, well, you're down ballot. That's a tough race, and it's not necessarily an exciting race. The Secretary of State's office. I'm hoping the issues that I talked about tonight are enough to ignite people who listen to me. But I'm not down ballot. I'm third up. It's the governor, lieutenant governor. It'll be the attorney general, and that'll be the Secretary of State. And when you get there, there are 2 people. One is going to be Bill Galvin, and one is going to be Bill Campbell. It's going to be incumbent first, because that's how it goes on the ballot, and then me next. And his is going to say candidate for re-election. And I'm hoping that people will say, put some numbers together. An incumbent who's a Democrat, who's been there for a long time, against I don't want to say a young guy, turned 50 a couple weeks ago, but I still will say a younger guy, a new face, a new voice, And that's the way I got to do it. I don't have $1 million. I do have my hands tied, and I'll say this, because I work for the city, I can't solicit directly or indirectly money. So anything I say tonight, please do not construe as being a direct or indirect solicitation for money, because I'm prohibited from doing that. So that makes it hard for me, because people want to be asked by the candidate, and I have a committee doing that for me. I also just don't believe that millions of dollars should be spent on elections. You see the money being spent and being raised for something that's pretty basic, running an election. Yep, question behind.
Anybody who listened to the news in the last few days has heard the fact that it's been disclosed that there were over 500 fraudulent voters in Michigan, enough to actually change the gentleman that was elected. Al Franken. Yeah. Minnesota, what did they say? Oh, Michigan, yeah. Hard to tell those two. But clearly, it's a little late in the game, almost, 9 months, to disclose the fact that there were fraudulent voters who obviously changed the outcome. Do you have a thought? I know you stated you're opposed to it, and I agree with you about voter ID and same-day registration for the same reason, but do you have a plan in mind, something that the legislature would be kind of embarrassed or forced to make a change?
Well, I'm surprised they haven't been embarrassed or forced to require IDs, because it seems to be 75 or 80 or more % of the people in Massachusetts have said that they favor IDs at the polls. Clerks are the ones who run the elections. The secretary doesn't run the election. Day to day, they're the ones that get up at 5 in the morning, make sure people at the polls make sure things run. And we've been asking for years, I know as long as I've been involved, to have a comprehensive look at the laws. There's about 600 pages, single spaces of election laws in Massachusetts. And I think that's much too complicated. A lot of it's older and needs to be done over. And I think that's the way we do it. And this isn't I'm not saying I'm creating a commission, definitely not. These are clerks who are already working in the field who have said, we want to do this, let's work as a team. And I think you need the secretary to do that. I'll give you an example. In the October 08 election, so that's the big historic election that we're going to have unbelievable turnout in, 6 days before that election, a major law passed affecting election laws that blindsided election officials in the communities. And we asked our legislators, where did this come from? And they said, oh, Bill's bill? It was Bill Galvin's bill. And what it did is allowed somebody who moved from a community to go back to their old community for up to 18 months if they failed to re-register in their new community. Now, you already have, that's an old, long-standing law in Massachusetts. You can go up to 6 months on a state election back. But now they extended it to 18 months. We had a separate ballot for regular voters and the 18-month voters. And the 18-month voters could only vote for president and the United States senator. And then they had a different affidavit than the other affidavit we had. And we had another roster and another roster. And this is 6 days before the election. And we had already trained our poll workers. I mean, you have training every year, got them ready, and we were done. And all of a sudden, we had to get word out to our poll workers, hey guys, there's something else big coming. What I ended up doing, it goes back to law school, is I did a flow chart. If this comes in, follow this. If this comes in, follow that. And we shared that with other clerks across Massachusetts. But the point is that if the secretary wants something through, they do give great weight to the secretary's opinion, and they are able to get something through. And I would use that. I would use my office to affect good, positive change. And I wouldn't be afraid to talk about it. You know, there's one bill right now, we just got an email, the clerks got an email from an organization that is in favor of all these good government ideas that really are not good government ideas. And what they want to do is allow 16-and-a-half-year-olds to register to vote. Now, they wouldn't be able to vote, they'd be pre-registered to vote. So that when they turned 18, they wouldn't have to worry about registering to vote. However, we know how often people move. And you're creating a new bureaucracy, a new system, a new list, and you're going to create an expectation in these kids that they don't have to do anything else. I'm registered to vote, whether they move or not. It's just another bad idea that is floating in the legislature right now.
How early can they register now?
How early they can register right now is 18. You can register if you will turn 18 before the next election. So, for instance, if the last day to register to vote was August 12th for the September 14th election, the math is wrong, but somewhere in there, okay, you can register up to August 12th and then be eligible for that September election as long as you turn 18 before. So now what one clerk said is, are we now going to have another list at the precincts of people who are pre-registered to show them to say, oh, I'm sorry, you're pre-registered, you're not registered yet because you didn't quite turn 18.
Yeah.